welcome back to my channel, Beautiful Minutia. If you're new here, my name is Tiffany, and today I am going to be sharing some things that have been bringing me joy lately. By lately, I mean the third quarter of 2024, so this goes back as early as July and through September, but there's definitely plenty of cozy things in here that probably are still applicable in October as well. I do these every quarter and really enjoy sharing some of my favorite things. So obviously I'll be sharing my favorite books because this is a booktube channel, but I also share, video games, entertainment, food, different things like that. And I always have the timestamps in the descriptions below, so that way you can skip around. If you are here for the books, you can skip right to that. And then I also have everything linked as well. So if there's something that I mention, a particular recipe or something that just sounds really, really good to you, it's easy for you to find. Okay, let's start out with food. So I do have some recipes that I'm going to share, but first I have some other things to share first. This was actually sent to me by Dia with some other things for my birthday, and Dia every year ends up sending me some type of tea or coffee or something that I'm then obsessed with and then becomes a regular part of my life. So this year is no different. She bought me this tin of Harney teas, Harney and Sons, sorry. So this is Hot Cinnamon Sunset, and it smells like a red hot, but it is the tastiest tea, and it tastes the least like black tea than any other black tea I've ever had. It's absolutely incredible. I've mentioned this before, but the last time I would have mentioned it would have been last fall, but this has become a fall staple in our household, and that is Trader Joe's Autumn Maple Coffee. This is my favorite. I have been a pumpkin spice girly my whole life, where I just love all the pumpkin things, but maple is passing up pumpkin for me, and I never would have thought that would happen. This is my favorite maple coffee, although Aldi also had a coffee this fall for the first time that was maple that I absolutely loved. It was like a maple pecan, and it was so, so good, but nothing tops this for me. This is my favorite seasonal drink of the entire year, not only passing up pumpkin spice, but also I will usually get a peppermint mocha flavored coffee and around Christmas time, and I love that, but this passes up that. It's just my all-time favorite. All right, so a couple of recipes that I have loved. One that is so simple and so delicious are these crispy black bean tacos from Pinch of Yum. Pinch of Yum is one of my favorite food blogs, and this is so delicious and so easy and has very few ingredients in it. So you blend up the beans with your favorite salsa, a few other seasonings, you put them in a flour tortilla, and then you fry it on both sides, so it ends up being super crispy. But to me, the best part was the dip that you make alongside of it was so delicious, and the whole thing was just amazing. It was just super fast and super yummy. I also found a recipe for, I guess you would say it's saag. It's spelled S-A-A-G. It's Indian, and I had seen it on menus and stuff before, but I didn't really know what it was, so I found a recipe for it online. I guess I don't know how truly authentic this recipe is because it's a Whole30 recipe. Since it's Whole30, that means it doesn't have dairy in it, and most saag recipes do have dairy in it because a lot of saag has paneer in it, which is deep fried cheese cubes, and obviously I cannot have that since I can't have dairy. So I was really excited to find this recipe that didn't have any dairy in it, and it was so good. It is probably the ugliest thing I have ever made because there is so much spinach in this recipe, and so the color is just so ugly, but it is one of the most delicious things that I have made, and ever since I made it, I've been thinking about making it again. Before I move on to entertainment, books, all the other things, I have a couple of miscellaneous things that I wanted to share. So first of all, actually I did share this in my birthday haul, but I'm going to share it again because I love it so much. My friend Whitney for my birthday found this Dostoevsky Bust, which is just incredible. It was one of my favorite birthday gifts that I got this year because it was not only really thoughtful, but also it looks really cool on my shelves. You probably won't see it behind me because all my Dostoevsky books are over here, and I kind of want to put him on top of some Dostoevsky books because that just feels fitting. But I just wanted to bring up how much joy I get every time I see this. Another thing that is bringing me so much joy that I did not think would bring me joy is my in-laws brought me this giant sweatshirt for my birthday because my husband told them that he thought I would really love it. And so it was his suggestion and it came and I was like, I don't think I would have ever asked for this. And then I put it on and like the inside of it is all like Sherpa lined and it's humongous. Like it comes down to my knees and it's just like the biggest sweatshirt ever. But it's not like a Snuggie because it does have like, it goes all the way around and it does have like, you know, the cuffs around the wrist that are tighter so it doesn't like slide over your hand. But I put it on and it's like the warmest thing ever. And now I use it like every single day. Like I wake up in the morning and I put it on and I am all cozied up when I'm having my coffee. I will put it on like when I'm playing video games and it's so comfy and cozy that my daughter still had some birthday money left over because her birthday was in August. And she was like, I have to get this. And so she ordered one right after I got mine. So we each have one and we will often wear them when we're hanging out in the evening on the couch. Sometimes we both wear them when we're doing school together and it is just like the coziest thing and it's making both of our lives better than we would have ever dreamed a sweatshirt could. I guess something else miscellaneous that has been bringing me joy is we ended up with a new furry family member in the last quarter. So we have a little kitten named Ollie who showed up at our doorstep. We named him Ollie after Oliver Twist. We actually rescued him from the side of the road that was near our house. We could hear him crying and we ended up coaxing him out and he was really shy and really skittish, but he's really warmed up and he is just absolutely a sweetheart. He looks almost identical to one of our adult cats, Winston, except Winston has like a little white stripe on his nose and a tiny little white mustache. But other than that, Ollie looks exactly like Winnie and he follows him around everywhere and it's so cute. So it's like he just wants to learn the ropes from his big brother. He's like, oh, he looks just like me. Maybe he'll show me what to do. So anyways, he's really sweet and we really love him. Okay, let's move on to entertainment. So we'll start with video games. I'm actually not gonna do, I think every other quarter this year, I've done like a video talking about all the games that I played for the quarter and I'm not doing that. I'm just going to talk about some of my favorites. And I actually played a lot of video games, like a lot of different video games over the past quarter because I played a lot of shorter games. So I have 5 games that I'm going to share with you here that were just ones that I just absolutely loved. Starting out with Pixel Cafe. This is actually a relatively inexpensive game even when it's not on sale, but I got it on a really great sale and spent like $5 or something like that on it, which is well worth the amount of time that I put into it. So in this game, you actually play as someone who is working at a cafe, so it has all the restaurant management stuff, and it does have cutscenes and stuff that gives like some story and some character development. But as I continued in the game, I found myself skipping those a lot because I really didn't care about the storyline so much. I just more enjoyed working at these different cafes. She ends up moving from cafe to cafe and like the map expands and it's just really fun. But as the game progresses, the difficulty also progresses. And so I wouldn't call this like a super relaxing game, even though it's got like a great like lo-fi soundtrack and it's got like some really cute pixel art and stuff. It actually becomes very stressful. But I loved it. It was really fun to kind of like work on like multitasking within this restaurant management. The next game that I played was even shorter than Pixel Cafe. Pixel Cafe wasn't like incredibly short, but it also wasn't very long. I was definitely not more than 10 hours. I would say probably in the 5 to 10 hour range. This next one was more like 2 hours, and that's Donut County. I'd seen this game around for a while and finally it went on so steep a clearance that I went ahead and bought it. But in this game, there's like this giant hole that is swallowing up things. And so that's what you're doing. You're controlling this hole. And so it starts out small, and as you swallow things, it gets progressively bigger and bigger until you can swallow everything on the screen. It's surprisingly satisfying to play this game, but in addition to it being satisfying, it has a hilarious story. So in between each level, there are cutscenes, and there's this raccoon who is controlling the hole actually, and it's just like, it's so funny, all of the components that go into the story, and that's what made it super fun. Another really short game that I played that is actually really new, it came out this year, but it just came out on the Switch, I think either in July or August, is Minami Lane. Minami Lane is like a street building simulator, so essentially you start out with a pretty blank looking street, and there are people who live there and they want certain things. And so when you like check the satisfaction of the residents who live there and like click on them, you can find out like what they like. And so you can build like ramen restaurants, and you can build bookshops, and you can build different things to beautify the street and all of that kind of thing. And then at each different place, like you can select which books you want to sell, or you can select which types of ramen you want to sell, or which types of boba you want to sell. And you can gauge like the customer satisfaction, so you can find out what recipe they enjoy or what books they enjoy buying or all of that kind of stuff. It is such a simple game, and it's actually pretty short, like the storyline one, but then there's also like a sandbox setting where you can just do whatever you want to do, and that's really fun too. But it was just like, I really enjoyed it. The opposite of cute, cozy, and relaxing is Death's Door. Death's Door has you playing as a crow who is a reaper essentially, and so that's kind of where the story goes. And it is like, I loved the stylistic choice of it. It's like a top-down isometric game, which reminded me a lot of Tunic, which I also really loved. This is similar to Tunic in some ways, in that like the fighting is really difficult, but I felt like there was more learning with Death's Door, where like the combat was more of the puzzle than puzzles within the game. There were some puzzles, but Tunic is like super puzzle heavy, and it also has like very difficult combat. But I felt like Death's Door was like a puzzle to figuring out like the different patterns to how different enemies behave. And I died a ton while playing this game, but I felt like each death was like a learning experience to then teach me that much more what to do. There's a lot of humor in this game, which I really liked. I really liked the animation style. I really loved the soundtrack. I thought the story was pretty interesting because there's some mysteries going on and things that you're trying to solve and figure out what's going on, especially as there are different doors that you can go through that lead to different areas. And it kind of, there's like a hall of doors that you're in that have doors that lead to different areas, which kind of reminded me a little bit of Monsters Inc., even though that probably was not the vibe that they were going for. But I just really loved this game and never got tired of how many times I died. The last game that I want to talk about has been out on the Switch for I think about a year, but I have been waiting on it till it went on a better sale, and then it went on sale like right before my birthday, and I was super excited, and that is My Time at Sandrock. So last year I played My Time at Portia, and I really enjoyed it, but there were things I didn't like about it, especially like some quality of life things, and I didn't particularly care for the animation style, and I do think My Time at Sandrock looks a little bit more grown up than My Time at Portia did, but it's still like pretty cutesy. But in this game, it looks like a farming sim, but it's not exactly. It's kind of more of a crafting game, because you show up to this new town and you are a builder. So what you do is you accept commissions from people in town or from the town itself to build things to better the town. And so you have to collect resources and build machines that help you refine the resources that you need, or create different parts for different machines that you're going to build and things like that. So there are definitely like mines where you go and you dig to get different ores that you need and things like that. And it's set in a desert town. So there's kind of an added level here that wasn't in Portia, and that there is a shortage of water at all times, and your machines need water to run. And that was not something that was present in Portia at all. So there are things like that that are different, but a lot of the quality of life stuff, like I said, is greatly updated. I thought that the townspeople had more personality, and I am actually still currently playing this at the time of filming this video. So I'm still really enjoying it a lot, and I have actually like looked at hours put into the games, and this has actually passed up My Time at Portia, and then I have spent more hours playing it than My Time at Portia, and I'm not sick of it yet. I was already sick of Portia when I'd reached this threshold of however many hours played. But there's like a really interesting like storyline involving this bandit and some of the havoc he's wreaking in town, along with just trying to beautify and build up this kind of run down desert town. It's just really fun and I love it. Okay, let's move on to music. We're really blessed with some K-pop comebacks that were just phenomenal in the third quarter. But before I go on to that, I'm going to mention one thing that is actually surprisingly not K-pop related. So I really enjoy the Worship Initiative, which is a like worship, I was gonna say group, but it's like, I don't know, it's by Shane and Shane. They have other people on there as well, but all it is like them doing covers of different worship songs. I think maybe there's some of them that they wrote, but they're all like worship music or like hymn centric, rather than being like kind of what the like normal CCM style music would be nowadays. They just came out with an album in September. Well, maybe they didn't come out with it in September. I started listening to it in September, and it's all modern hymns, and it is just so good. Like, I love it so much. It has been so encouraging to me and uplifting to me, and I just it's been like a mood shifter to me that was like very much needed. So if you're someone who enjoys listening to Christian music but are getting kind of sick of all of the modern praise and worship kind of sounding all exactly the same, you might actually really like this, because they do sound like old hymns, and they have a lot of the same like deep theological themes that old hymns have. It does have more modern language in that I don't remember any of the songs having like these and thous and that kind of stuff, but it definitely has like a higher vocabulary and theology level than a lot of like really popular songs right now. And so that was something I also really appreciated about it. Okay, K-pop. So we had Stray Kids have a comeback, their comeback 8, which, oh my gosh, probably my favorite on this list of all the comebacks that I'm going to mention. I just loved it so much. I loved every song on there. Chick Chick Boom is probably still a favorite, but really I love them all. We also had solo projects from both Nayeon and Chewy from Twice, and both of them are really good, totally different vibes. I really enjoyed ABCD from Nayeon, but I think I enjoyed Chewy's comeback in general just a little bit more. I liked the vibe that she was going for. And then we had a comeback from Enhypen as well, with like essentially like the songs of the summer for me. Like, my gosh, EXO was so good. Like, that is one of my favorites, but I also really loved Royalty. Loved it. Oh my gosh. And then lastly, I just want to mention that Claire and I have discovered a new group that we're really, really loving, and that's Boy Next Door. It actually started with my friend Christy sending me a video of their song Earth, Wind, and Fire, and it is so catchy and so fun and just like really, really cutesy. And so from there, we've just kind of dived into their music, and we haven't really like totally dived into them as a whole. Like, I don't even know how many members they have. I don't know any of their members' names. I haven't gone that far into the rabbit hole like I did with ATEEZ and Stray Kids, and that's fine. I'm just like here for the vibes and really enjoying it. In terms of things I've been watching, I don't know if I should share with you what I've been watching, only because I haven't finished anything. So I've been watching Imitation with my friend Christy, which is a K-drama that's on Amazon Prime, and it's about K-pop groups and like some of the things that K-pop idols deal with in their industry, essentially. The reason why we're watching it, it's actually a rewatch for Christy, but the reason that we're watching it is 4 of the 8 members of ATEEZ are in it, and you know who is one of my favorites, it's actually like the second male lead, and he's so good in it. But I still have a little ways to go on that one. The show that I'm closer to completing, but I still have like 4 episodes or 5 episodes left, is Vincenzo. This is on Netflix, and I love it so much. My husband and I are watching it together, and I saw like what it was about, because it is about like a Korean guy who ends up getting as a child adopted by an Italian family and then becomes a consigliere to the Italian mafia. And so I was like, this sounds like this is a show Peter would really like. And so I suggested it to him. We've been watching it, and we were unprepared for how funny it was going to be, because it sounds like it's just like really intense, and there are some like incredibly intense moments. In fact, I was talking to someone, and I was telling them like, oh, it's not that violent, like, because it wasn't at that point, and then we hit like episode 8 or something like that, and it got a lot more violent. So it does have definitely a lot of moments of intensity, a lot of moments of violence, and you're watching this mob member fighting against like some really evil forces that are happening in South Korea, of like some corrupt companies, and it gets really nasty and really ugly at times, but there's also like a sense of community in this place where he's living and how he ends up getting to know the other people who are living in this building that he's living in. And then there is a female lawyer that he gets to know and is helping him with some of the legal proceedings and that kind of stuff. And it's just like, it has like twist after twist, in addition to it being like really action-packed, really funny, really heartwarming at times, and we have just loved it. Unless it goes off the rails towards the end, which it might. We're both already saying like, oh, this could possibly be like our favorite ever. Like, it's really, really close, and we've watched quite a few K-dramas together, so for us to say that it's that high up there is saying a lot. Okay, the moment you've probably been waiting for, let's talk about books. So third quarter, I didn't have very many 5-star reads that were not rereads for me. And I don't really want to talk about like favorite books and have it all be books that I've read before. So I'm just going to be talking about books that I have not previously read. I think in the third quarter, I only had like 2 books that were 5 stars that I had not previously read. And one of those I read in like July. And so now months later, I don't feel like that's one of my favorites of the quarter. So I'm not even going to mention it, but the other one is going to come up. I'm going to go in the order that I read them. So I'm going to start with The Secret Agent by Joseph Conrad. This book was not at all what I was expecting, especially if you read anything about the description. You know, there's talks of like espionage, double agents, and explosions and things like that. And that is really not truly what this story is about. Like, you start off with this guy who's an agent and him having some kind of like philosophical conversations with other people who come and meet at this bookstore that he does own and make money from, but also kind of like moonlights as a meeting place for these other people. And then he ends up meeting with someone who basically gives him an ultimatum that you need to do this and blow up this thing, because if you do, then we'll get people's attention, we can get some things moving. If you don't, we're gonna kick you out, essentially. Then we go farther into the story, and it ends up really not being about all these international political things that you think it's going to end up being about. Like, it ends up being like a very deep psychological study of this guy who is the agent in question and the one that I've already mentioned, and then his wife and her brother. And so it really ends up being a psychological profile of this family. And that's what ended up being so good about it. And I just really ended up loving it. On a completely different note, another book that I ended up loving was Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. I actually did a video where I read the book and then I watched the movie and compared the two and talked about it, so I will link that video here so that way you can watch it if you want to, because it has a lot more of my in-depth thoughts. But this book was just like super whimsical and cozy and fun, and it was just super enjoyable. It's about a girl named Sophie who finds herself unfortunately cursed by a witch to live in the body of an old woman. She ends up working for a wizard named Hal, who has a really bad reputation in the area, and the story just kind of goes from there. He's living in this castle that can move around, thus the Howl's Moving Castle, and just has some really good found family elements in it. The magic was super fun, and the story itself was really enjoyable, and I really liked it a lot. Again, not 5 stars, but actually like really close, like a 4.5. Next up is a book that I feel like, I don't know if it deserves 5 stars, but I had 5-star feelings while I was reading it, and that is 9 Coaches Waiting by Mary Stewart. This is my first Mary Stewart, and man, oh my gosh, it is such a fun gothic mystery. It reminds me a lot of Daphne du Maurier, so if you like du Maurier, you would probably also like this book. I don't know if all Mary Stewart's books kind of follow that same trajectory, but this is about a young girl who is a governess, and she ends up getting a job in France. She arrives at this manor where the family lives, and she's going to be taking care of a young boy, and things just feel like they're not quite right, and she has a feeling of unease, and as time goes on she ends up uncovering a plot, and there's just a lot that happens. But there's a lot of stylistic things that reminded me of du Maurier, and kind of like this creepy, unsettling atmosphere that was so well done. A young, naive female protagonist that kind of gets swept up in some nefarious plans, and yeah, It was just so good. I loved every second of it. The one 5-star on this list that was a new to me 5-star is The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde. This is the very first of Oscar Wilde's plays that I have read, and it will not be the last. I had such a great time with this. I had read lots of other things by Oscar Wilde. I'd read some of his short stories, some of his fairy tales. Of course, I'd read Dorian Gray, so I'd read quite a few things by him, and I was still unprepared for how hilarious this play ended up being. It's a story of two men and girls that they fall in love with, both of whom insist that they want to marry men named Ernest, which is just really funny. And I don't know, there's just a lot of commentary on Victorian society that happens here. And it's just very like witty, very tongue-in-cheek, and the humor is just fabulous. I was debating which book I wanted to choose for the last book here because there was a couple others that I also really enjoyed that were not quite 5 stars but still were really enjoyable. And I think ultimately the one that I have to go with is The Blue Castle by Ellen Montgomery. This is a book that I had really high expectations for, and it didn't fully meet those expectations, but it came really, really close. So I'd had a lot of people tell me that this is their very favorite and that they liked it even more than they liked Anne. And so I went into it with really high expectations, expecting it to be 5 stars, and it wasn't quite for me, but the longer I've sat and thought about it, the more that I really do love it. I think my biggest argument is that I just didn't love the beginning of the book. So we meet a girl named Valancy who is 29 years old, and she gets a devastating health diagnosis that the doctor tells her she probably won't make it through the next year of her life. She's been raised in a really controlling atmosphere and has lived in fear of what other people think of her whole life. And so she just decides, well, if I'm gonna die anyway, then I want to actually live before I die. And so she just kind of like lets go of a lot of those things. And by the time she ends up breaking ties with her family, which is probably like, I don't know, maybe like a third of the way through the book or something like that, that's when then the book started to improve for me because I liked the side characters more. And once Valancy removes herself from the toxicity of her family, she becomes a much more enjoyable protagonist to spend time with. Montgomery just has unparalleled writing, especially of nature, but her character development in this was just absolutely exquisite as well. And so I really, really did love it. I actually did a full spoilery vlog on my thoughts over on my Patreon. So if that's something you're interested in, every single month I do a video of a book that was recommended to me from one of my patrons and do a whole spoilery vlog. And actually I have one for The Secret Agent as well. So if that's something that sounds fun to you, you should hop on over. Okay, well, those are some of my favorites from the last quarter. There were quite a few things that brought me joy. I'd love to hear from you in the comments down below. If you enjoy any of the things that I mentioned here, of course, I'd love to hear about that. But even more so, I would love to hear what is bringing you joy lately. Is it something little? Is it something big? Is it a book? Is it a show? Is it a song? Is it an experience? Is it something you've been eating? We can find joy from all kinds of different sources, and I would just love to hear what's been making you happy. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like and also subscribe so you can continue to see more bookish content from me, and I will see you again next time.